Have you ever looked at your farm life and thought, am I even supposed to be doing this? If so, you'll want to listen as I chat with Cassidy Ball of Daigle Farm about this and so much more on today's episode of Food, Flowers, and Fun, Visits with Farm Women from Around the World. If you're the woman who does it all, farm work, housework, bookwork, homework, getting up at the break of dawn, this is the podcast for you.
How do you multiply by fractions, Mom?
Get away from the cares of the day. Free stock, rootstock, feedstock, seed stock. Chat with women around the world who raise food, flowers, and fun. With your host, Kay Castrataro. That's me. Welcome back to Food, Flowers, and Fun, Visits with Farm Women from Around the World. And I am here with Cassidy Ball from Daigle Farm in Connecticut. And as always, we are sponsored by Penlight for Farmers, who is helping you to create more time, energy, and abundance in your farm life. So Cassidy, welcome. How are you today?
Doing very good. Thank you so much for inviting me, Kay. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you. So your farm is quite diverse. Like I see that you've got livestock. It looks like you do some root vegetables and I've got to say, I was just scouting around on your website and I found your weekly menu thing and I'm thinking, man, I wish I were living closer to you because I totally want food delivered to my house from your farm. So, like we always do, I'm just gonna hop in and start with, why don't you tell our people who you are, how you got into farming, and we'll go from there.
All right. Well, as you said, Kay, my name is Cassidy. So, when I was about 24 years old or so, I had learned about the program called WOOF, WOOF, which I don't totally know I'm going to butcher it a little bit, but it's basically worldwide organic farming. It's worldwide. So I was going to start small. There was a couple places, probably, a town over, right over in Rhode Island since I'm in Connecticut. So I was so interested in it, but basically the program is kind of like a work share. You reach out to these farmers and all kinds of different farms. If you just wanted to work at an orchard, you could work at an orchard. If you want to work at a sheep farm, you can find a sheep farm that's looking for help. But basically farmers are looking for help and they can't always pay. So it was kind of like a work trade where you can go to a farm, they'll put you up room and board. Some of them will pay you, definitely feed you. And then in exchange, you learn some new trades, you learn some new skills, and you get to immerse yourself in the life. So I was signed up for that for a couple of years, but I was too scared to do it actually. So I never
took advantage of any of the farms. So did you get offered? Did you get offered positions and you said, "Oh, sorry, I'm not going to do that"?
Exactly. So a couple of them had reached out and said, "Yeah, we have some people already right now as like host farmers is what they would call it. So we're looking for woofers." But I was too scared to do it. And then a friend of mine, Dylan, who's now my partner, my boyfriend, future husband, really the creator of Daigle Farm, if you will. I saw that he had been farming. So we grew up going to school together. I'd known him since the third grade. We kind of fell out of touch in high school and a little bit into our 20s. And I saw that he had started a farm and he was doing the home delivery then. And I was like, I've known him forever. I don't have to be embarrassed or scared or anything if I don't know anything. So I reached out to him and I never did it through Wolf, but I got to do it right in my, my hometown.
Right.
And he was, it was just him. So he said, yeah, of course, come on over, come learn some stuff. At the time he was split between two locations. He had a house and a farm kind of up the road from where we are now. And then this property that our farm is on now is where he grew up, his family's property. So it wasn't ever a farm before, but fortunately his dad is pretty easygoing. Dylan's his only son and was like, whatever you want to do, I'll help you out if I can, whatever, you want to be a crazy farmer, you go right ahead. Like I'll reap the rewards. So,
nice.
Yep. So he had a couple, he had a sheep, a a goose that I did not like named Timmy because it was mean. Okay,
I'm
it was
I'm
a
not a
mean
fan of
goose.
geese. I gotta tell you, there was a horse farm that I used to get grain from, and they had geese everywhere. And every time I drove, in fact, this is why I stopped going there, because every time I drove in there, the geese just like came in from everywhere and then they're all around. And you're trying to leave and you're trying not to hit the geese and
Right?
they're just like, yeah, I don't move for cars. And I'm like, but
Yeah.
I don't want to kill you driving out
And
of this person's
right,
property.
like
And then,
I don't get too mad at me and start charging. Yeah.
I also remember this is so funny. First grade, we used to do phonics back in the day. We did
Yeah.
phonics and we had these cards that would have the letters on them and we would read this little story and do the sounds. And when we did the TH sounds, they actually had a story about geese. And when the geese were happy, they'd go and when they were angry, they were and so so, so I think my whole impression of geese has definitely been covered. That and Canada geese that would eat our crops every spring in the rye.
Oh,
We were like, get rid of the geese.
right. The geese
Anyway,
gotta go.
all this about Timmy. Poor Timmy.
Poor Timmy. I know that was Dylan's like best friend. And he sure was like he was a little Snow White. Like all the animals would follow him around the property. He had like one goat, one sheep, vegetables. He always did chickens. So he had that going for him. But so as I, started helping out, I just kind of fell in love with it. I love that he could kind of turn nothing. Like he could just turn this dirt into soil, into vegetables, into a whole business where he could deliver it to people's houses. And I just thought that was so
Mm.
awesome. And then I kind of just never left. And then we kind of just kept, one thing that really also was good about us is we would just ping ideas off of each other. We were just like constantly pinging ideas. And then they would come to life. And that was so exciting for me because I'd always been a dreamer, but I'd never had that person to help me really put them into a solid plan. So,
Right.
here we are 6 years later, and we do about, let's say, we do about 300 meat chickens once a month from May through November. We do, this year we did 27 pork pigs, pigs.
Okay.
We do, about 130 laying hens, and then we are raising about 50 Thanksgiving turkeys. So we've got quite a bit going on as far as livestock. And then we've got, a huge market garden. We do a greenhouse that we heat with wood in the wintertime just
Oh,
to kind of
nice.
hold us
So do
over.
you
Yeah.
use an outdoor wood furnace for that, or how do you
Nope.
do that in the greenhouse? Because I know sometimes people worry about like carbon monoxide being too much in a greenhouse
Mhm.
and poisoning things. So not poisoning the food for people, but just that the plants don't survive very well.
Yeah.
So tell me how you're doing that by heating with wood.
So it's just a regular old wood stove. Every year we, put pallets of wood that we chop down on the property because we do have a lot of woodlands. And we've never had a problem with any of the plants not growing very well with the carbon. We there's been times where it's backed up and it's been, smoked into the greenhouse a little bit. We don't stay in there, but some carbon loading is good for some of the crops. And most of them are root crops at that point. So I haven't noticed any kind of issue with it. Sometimes we'll even, fertilize the rows with some of the pot ash.
Yep.
Mhm.
I use the potash from my wood stove to get rid of my front lawn. Keep spreading it in
Talking
my
about
front yard and I notice that it's killing the grass and that the moss is coming in and I'm like,
yeah.
yes, that's working
Oh,
for me because
oh my
I'm a
God.
big fan of not mowing.
Yes. Okay. And because I think I believe, don't quote me on this one, but I believe ash might raise the pH or does it lower it? I can't remember.
You
But
know, I
so
always have to I always have to double check. I should not
yeah.
admit this on this, but
Yeah.
I always have to check. But
Yeah.
whatever it's doing, the grass doesn't like it as much as the moss, and that's okay
Yeah.
for me.
And you're like, all right, we're green. It's good. We love it. Oh my God. That's so
And
funny.
it's
Yeah.
soft underfoot too.
Mhm.
So it,
So we do all of our hot water. We do have one giant wood furnace on the property, and it does all the hot water in the main house, and then we're over in the in-law house, or the in-law garage rather. Um, but that is the goal eventually someday to be able to get another wood boiler because it would just be so much more simple because we do have to go out there, 2 to 3 times a day to stoke the stove. And it's not, it's not perfect. At the far end of the greenhouse, it gets a little colder, so we can always tell the crops grow a little slower.
yeah.
Um, sometimes like we have, in the past, we've had some really, really cold weeks where we still have to put frost cloth over some of the crops. So it's definitely not foolproof, but it keeps us open year round. So where a
Nice.
lot of farms, I would say, have to close down. But one of the other reasons we wanted to really do that too was because our pigs, we do spring pigs, so they're ready to go around right now. So we get the pork back early November, early December sometimes. We have all this meat in the freezer that we'd like to continue to sell. So it goes a little bit better if you have some. We do microgreens as well, so we'll do those in our inside grow room with lights and all that stuff. So it
Yep.
goes a little better if you've got some other stuff with
Yeah.
it.
So let's talk about the year-round growing thing because it is something that, as you said, it's nice to have it for income and
Mhm.
to kind of steady out the labor a little bit. I compare it, and maybe this is not quite accurate, but I compare it to when we were dairy farming, that we actually found that we had more time when we were dairy farming than we did when we were vegetable farming because the vegetable farming was so labor intensive for such a short period of time that it's like we almost went offline from our lives, which I do not recommend,
Mhm.
listeners out there.
Okay.
I am supporting you to do better than that. But that's how I grew up. And then dairy farming, it's all year round, every single day, but you have, bigger chunks of time during the day that you can like leave the farm and do stuff like go out to eat or stuff like that. So I'm
Right.
curious as to how you manage to keep taking care of yourself when you're farming year round because you don't get now that, downtime. So
Right.
what do you do to keep yourself sane and to work with your relationship with Dylan? Because,
Mhm.
that's a very important part of you as a person. So,
Yes. That's a great question. So I'm still navigating that for sure. I would say we've taken on some more helpers and we have plans to take on more helpers next year, even if it's only 1 day a week kind of thing. And that was one thing, the vegetables, they did fine, but in the past when we didn't have as much going on, I noticed that they had done better. So that is one thing. The vegetables kind of fell to the wayside as far as they could have got a little bit more attention this year. So I think in the past when we didn't have as much going on, I was more diligent about getting out there, weeding more, trellising the tomatoes more, thinning some of the plants that we had started, the seedlings, being more diligent about giving the baby seedlings that we started as much tender care as possible. Where this year it was more like, okay, they're not dead, give them a quick water, walk away. The weeds can wait. The tomatoes will still grow, kind of thing like that. So next year, I would really like to hire somebody that is passionate about growing vegetables that would want to come 1 day a week, couple hours, just to do general maintenance, whether it's harvest, weeding, planting new things, anything like that, just to kind of give us some extra hands for help.
yeah.
Because one other thing that we added to our plate was doing baking and kind of like making jams and things like that. So that takes a lot of time as well. We're doing a lot.
Yeah. So do you have I'm assuming you've got the farm kitchen authorization. Is that how you managed to do that?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, how long a process was that for you?
As far as building it goes,
Well, just the whole thing, like from when you decided to start doing the farm kitchen to the permitting process to all of that, because everybody does it a little differently. Some people actually have like a second kitchen in their homes. And so it's, they can set that aside and then just deal with that. And other people can use their kitchen, but they need a second hand washing sink so I'm curious as to how your process worked.
So we had originally done a cottage kitchen, which anybody can do. It's meant for people to use from their home kitchens. Our kitchen is very small, so we, made do. We would do Thanksgiving pies. We would do some breads. Primarily, Dylan was baking all of the bread, and he really wanted to get out of that. He wanted me to kind of take it over. He wanted to be outside with the chickens and the vegetables. So totally understood that. So around October of last year. Actually, okay, so about a year ago now, we did our first farm to table dinner at the farm. So we had to pull a couple temporary food permits. We did maybe about 30 people. We have one of our catering friends who catered it and cooked all the food for us. And that kind of was so exciting and so successful for us, beyond what I had dreamt it to be, that it was like, wow, we should do this more often. We should ask the questions that we need to ask on how we can do this more. So we have downstairs in the basement, it was kind of already our grow room where we would process all of our like wash our greens and package them and things like that. Nothing crazy. There was no ovens down there or anything like that. So we weren't doing the baking down there, but we said, well, why don't we put a kitchen down here? I don't see why we wouldn't be able to. No, it's not being used right now. We could still process the vegetables down there. It'll kind of get us to the next level. So we started, I called the town, I called the health department, I called anybody that would answer, and kind of, because I had absolutely no idea what to do. And when I Googled it, it was very, every state is different for their laws. So you really got to know your laws. Everybody has different permits and all that stuff. So I finally figured out which direction I needed to go in. And we're still finished doing the finishing touches. I still need to have, the health department come out and inspect it. I still need to have the town zoning change it. So we're not making the ready-made meals yet, or we haven't done another farm to table dinner this year, but it's closer than it's ever been. So we're able to still do all of our baked goods. So that's primarily what we've been doing right now.
Right. And
But we just
you've taken over the baked goods now?
I have, yes, I have. So, yep. So that's what's been happening. We just finally got a brand new oven in. It just got hooked up last night.
Oh,
So I'm going
congratulations.
to. Thank you. Yes, it's going to be a game changer, because before I was just working off of, my brother gave me his old propane oven, and it worked great. It got the job done. But it'll be nice to be able to bake, more at once, so it doesn't take me all day. And
Yeah,
maybe
so
I'll have some more
tell us about your oven. Tell us what it is and how it was an upgrade.
It was a commercial oven. It was, I got it from webstrants.com. I was going to get a used one. There's a couple used appliance places around us. But we had purchased an ice machine, and it worked one day and then it broke. And we're not very savvy when it comes to fixing things like that. So I really didn't want to get, something that was going to break on me. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to bite the bullet. I got a little small loan from a family member, so I can work on paying that back for them, that's extremely helpful when you have people that believe in you as well. So I would not have been able to do that if it weren't for that. So I just bit the bullet. We bought the oven. So they dropped it off on an 18-wheeler. It's brand is CPG, Cooking Performance Group. It's probably, I would say, middle of the road brand. So they have ones called Blodgett ovens, which is typically what you'll see in pizza restaurants, big restaurants, things like that, which was about double the price. So I figured I would get kind of the middle model, the beginner's model, see how it goes, because I really only bake about 2-3 days a week. So I didn't really need something it was only one day a week. It's spreading out over 2 or 3 at this point. And yeah, it's a good thing. It's a great thing. So that's what we got right now.
let's talk about the spreading out thing because one of my big passions with farmers is being able to create the farm life that works for the farmers and not
Mhm.
being driven by the farm. And I think it's very easy for us as farmers to have things that kind of expand on their own and create their own life. And then we suddenly wake up one day and we're like, oh, I'm putting all of my energy into this thing that I never really expected to do, maybe never even wanted to do. And, maybe that's not working for me. So I'm curious as to how the planning process works for you and Dylan on, what to expand when. Like what are some of those decision-making processes you go through?
Okay, that's a good question. So at this point, we are on year, I want to say 6 or 7 of the farm, so we're still relatively new.
Hmm.
So the decisions that get made are which ones are gonna like pay off first, I suppose. So there is other updates we want to make, like the wood boiler, expenses that we want to do, buying more equipment for our chicken processing that'll make things go smoother. So when it comes to that, it's which ones will pay off first and which ones make more sense and which ones can we make do without. So right now we only process chickens 2 days a month for only 7 months out of the year. So we don't need to make that purchase right now, because we can do without. It takes a little bit longer. Just like the oven, it took me almost a year to finally buy this oven because sure, it took me longer to do in the smaller oven, but I needed to make sure this was something I was going to continue doing, and not decide halfway through, I don't want to do baked goods anymore. So it's kind of a lot of what what are you going to stick with? What makes more sense? What can go without? What's working just fine but doesn't totally need an upgrade? And then I'm a big fan of making lists of like wish lists. So I'll find that sometimes they just end up getting checked off, or something better comes about, and I'm like, oh, I don't even want that anymore. Another one is our greenhouse. We've reskinned it maybe like 3 times now. And this year, Dylan's finally going to pay for the some of the things that, because we fabricated it ourselves. It was just some metal piping that his father got from a job that he did probably 15, 20 years ago, and it had been just sitting out in the field. So finally, when Dylan decided he wanted to be a farmer, he said, "Hey, Dad, we have all this,
Can I turn
this
it into a
greenhouse
greenhouse?
stuff."
Can I turn these
Yes,
pipes
yep,
into a
yep.
greenhouse?
Yeah, yeah. So he did, but we didn't buy like the wiggle wire that would help, when it came to rolling up the poly, and the poly is so expensive. So we never double skinned it. Which would help a lot with keeping it warmer with
Especially
the
in the
wood stove.
winter, yes,
But
with the
this,
wood stove.
yep. And then, because we made it ourselves, we'd had it the first time he made it, he spaced out the pipes a little bit too far away from each other. So when we had a really heavy snowstorm, it collapsed. And that was probably only like the first year he had it. So then he immediately feeling so devastated and so like, what, am I even supposed to be doing this? He patched it up.
Mhm.
So then there was a lot of little holes and tape here and there, but it was a greenhouse and it worked and whatever. So this year, we're finally going to reskin it. We're not going to cut the poly this time. We're going to put the wiggle wire on. We're going to get the track system. So next year when we roll it up, we don't have to use greenhouse tape when we want to close it back up for the winter. So small things that over time too, I almost feel like they're justified to do. It's like, okay, we put up with it for the last 5 years or so. I think it's time to upgrade and make things a little smoother ourselves. So
Yeah,
that is
well,
kind of our
that
system as far as our plans, and not letting things snowball too big.
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the really key things is that farmers are constantly trying to balance time versus money because we sometimes
Mm-hmm.
feel like we don't have enough money, so we don't want to put money into
Yep.
things if we can make up for it by spending time. And yet sometimes
Yeah.
that time expense becomes an emotional stress. It takes away from other
Mm,
activities we could be doing. And so, like, we have to almost like look at our time and put a value on that as well and say, what is it
mhm,
worth to me to get extra hours or not to have to be, repairing a collapsed greenhouse? Because when it
mhm,
collapses, now you're not just looking at putting it back together. Like usually you've got torn plastic everywhere, and so you got to buy new plastic, and you're rushing around, and you've got crops in the ground that are, getting cold. And so sometimes that money up front is actually the thing that's going to save you both time and money in the future.
mhm.
And I know that that's a really hard juggling to do to figure out what that is. Yeah.
You know what, too? You saying that, it makes me think too. It's kind of funny how if it's personally me that has to take the extra time, or if it's personally Dylan that has to take the extra time, um, you tend to like brush it off a little bit more. But if I can do anything to have our helpers whom we pay have an easier time and get things done more efficiently, I'll pay whatever it takes. It's so funny how that works. It's almost like, you don't value your time with the work as much as you value other people's time. So,
Yeah, so I'm gonna share a perspective right now just because this comes up so perfectly that I heard from, actually, he's a guy who does like Instagram stuff, Jake Adam Davey.
mhm,
But Jake Adam Davey. But anyway, he was talking about how we use our time, and he was talking about unproductive time versus productive time versus super productive time. And
mm,
he has this very interesting perspective that I've just really adopted. Well, cerebrally adopted. I still haven't put it into practice as well as I should. But unproductive time is the time you spend doing things that are not meeting any of your personal goals or values or business goals. It's just stuff that you have to do, but it's not meeting any felt need that you have. And then
mm,
productive time is the time that you spend actually meeting your goals and objectives. And, we can all define that differently. But then that super productive time is when somebody else is spending their time to meet your goals and objectives, freeing your time up to do something else. And I think that
mm,
whole idea of help, we want our help to truly be super productive. Like we want to
right?
be able to give them a job and say, go get this done. We want them to do it with the least amount of expense on our part and
Hmm.
and the least amount of management. Like I was thinking about your lists that you were talking about and how the lists just sometimes seem to get done. Like you just look and say, "Oh, look at that. I wrote it down and then it happened." And there's
Hmm.
studies that say that just writing down your goals will make you 42% more likely to accomplish them just by writing them down.
Thank God.
Doing nothing. You do nothing else. You just write it down and
Yeah.
and you're 42% more likely to get it done. So there's a reason for lists. This is also why I have a freebie for farmers that's about using lists to help you,
Hmm.
because the list can really make a huge difference in so many aspects. If people are doing an activity and they're not sure, you've got a process that you want, but they haven't internalized that process because it's not their business. Like, let's face it,
Right.
our help might really care about our businesses, but they're never going to care about our businesses, shouldn't. They should never care about our
Right.
businesses as much as we do. So you write
Right.
a list and you say, just do it
Hmm.
in this order. And if you do this, then I'm getting what I want. You're getting what
Hmm.
you want. Everybody's happy.
Everybody's happy. Yes. Yes.
I'm a big
I
fan of
love
lists.
that. Yeah. No, that's so true too about like if I write down my wish list, like just things that I want, I want this new thing, I want that. Most of the time it just ends up, yeah, people be like, "Oh my God, I had this extra thing. Could you use it?" And I'm like, "You have no idea. I've been wanting one of these. It's on my wish list. It's in my Amazon cart. I won't buy it, but so
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think it also puts us in a frame of mind where our subconscious is working for us. You hear all about
Yeah.
this like manifesting stuff, and I'm
Yeah.
I'm not, yeah, I get the manifesting and it does work, but it works because we actually then take action to do something. Like if you just make the wish and walk away from it and never do anything,
Mm-hmm.
it ain't gonna happen. But when you have it in the back of your mind as this thing that you're working towards, then when opportunities arise, you see them right away and you
Right,
jump on
right.
things and you make choices that get you closer to
Mm-hmm.
where you want to go. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like planning on a light version of planning. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I grew up going to Catholic school, so I have a pretty religious background. I kind of fell out of it. Now I've found my faith again. And so I used to be big into the manifestation, and I had all these little things I would say to myself in the morning. But now I kind of have lumped them together with religion. And I kind of feel like sometimes, like with the manifestation, it's like if you hold on to something and you want it so bad, you're not letting faith in. You're not letting. So when we write things down and we put them on our lists and things like that, we're still thinking about them subconsciously, like you were saying, but now we're allowing, God to deliver too. So that's kind
Yeah,
of how I
to do
deal with
it
it.
and to do it the way he's going to do it
Right.
instead
So
of
you don't,
us forcing something that might not
ugh,
be right for the time or the place. And I love
I'm
that. I
learning that.
absolutely.
I'm learning that every day because I'm kind of a control freak. I won't lie. I've had to learn. I've had to learn to let go of that a little bit because most of the time, like you said, it works out in a way that I didn't even picture, and it's better than I could have ever pictured. So
So, do you have an example of that? Because I think this is just such a great thing. And of course, I'm putting you right on the spot.
yeah, I know. I'm sure that there are so many. I'm trying to think. Okay, this would be a great example. So we bought a party tent for to have our farm to table dinner in, and this was my like, this is going to be great. We have this party tent now. We can have all kinds of more events. We can do little talks, all this stuff. Um, and then it blew over into my garden and it crumpled up because we did not use really good rebar stakes. We used whatever it came with, and it came from Home Depot, and it wasn't thousands of dollars. It was less than that. So it wasn't the best thing. So it blew over into my garden, and I'm like, oh my God, ruined. Everything's ruined. So Dylan was able to fix it, and I was like, oh my, this is perfect, great. He can do anything. We fix it. We get rebar stakes to hold him into the ground. Awesome, we're back in business. This is great. So we retire the tent for the winter time. Next, the spring comes out. This spring, actually, we usually set up our tent for our opening stand weekend, and we have vendors and things like that, selling their crafts and soaps and all that.
Yeah. Oh,
So
that's
we
fun.
had our opening. Yeah, so it went great. The tent was up, it was perfect. We had our stakes down. We thought we learned all the quirks from it. And then the next day after our opening weekend, it blew over again. Dylan says, "Oh my God, the tent's gone. Where's the tent?" So we go outside, and at this point, it's like crumpled like a pretzel. He was calling it our farm art installation because it was just like this abstract like thing, and I am just so in disbelief. I'm like, how could this happen again? We took all the precautions. Like, what the heck? Are we meant to be doing this? This is just ridiculous. But again, it was one of those thoughts that we had had previously. We originally said, well, why don't we build a post and beam structure like you'd see at a park? But it was one of those, we're not going to spend the money on that because it's very expensive. Let's try it out by buying the pop-up tent. We put, we got a load of stones down to make the ground compact. But because of that happening, I think, it was God's way of saying, hey, like, you kind of tried to take the easy route that you thought was the easy route. This is the plan that I have, actually. So we had Ellis Tech come, which the technical school near us, which his father taught masonry for 30 years at. So
Okay. He's
very,
got some
he knows
connections there.
some
Yep.
connections. He knows the students, any of the shops at tech schools will take on the public as long as they have the room and they have the means and they've got the budget. So we signed up for them to come out and pour us a concrete pad. That was the first step. They were able to do that. We were able to use some of the materials on the farm to make it a little bit cheaper as far as Instead of buying all the I think it's like the rebar stuff, we were able to use some old fencing. So it comes in handy when we call his dad the pack rat, but it always comes in handy. So I can't even get mad at him that he keeps all this extra stuff.
Oh, we say that all the time because I come from a family of hoarders. And so it's like, on the one hand, and the reason they hoard is because they're like, well, I could use this. I could use
Yes.
this. I could use
I don't
this.
know.
And
I don't know when. It might be 20 years from now,
right.
but
And you hold on to all this stuff. And then that one time that you can use it, that feeds the hoarding. And it's like, but see,
I
I did
know.
that and it worked. And so so you're always
Like the
in that,
greenhouse.
like, am I
Yeah.
really doing a good thing or not thing?
Yes. I know. I'm feeding it. I'm feeding his problem, but it's working out. So I'm like,
Feeding your
okay.
addiction. I'm feeding your addiction.
Yes. Yes. And it's just, and then as soon as, also on the other end, as soon as you get rid of something, you say, I'm just going to get rid of this stuff.
And
That's
you
when you
want
need it the most. That's when you need it. Like all of a sudden you're like, I had that one thing that would have been perfect for this thing, and now I don't have it. So then that feeds it too. But this worked out good. We got a concrete pad poured, and then we actually have a neighbor who is a contractor, and we did a little bartering, for a pig, and he is helping us build the structure. So it is a slow and steady process, and I'm trusting the process. And eventually it's going to be, the foundation is going to be there, that it's not going to be able to get blown away. So I think that was a situation where, I had different plans in my head and they didn't work out the way I wanted them to. So now I'm like, well, that was a good wake up call to slow it down. I don't need to know everything. I don't need to know why. But it will all work itself out.
And I think one of the things I'm hearing in this too is, there's a wee bit of judgment that I hear in the back of what you're saying, that it's like, well, I was trying to do the easy way or the cheap way. And really, I want to reframe that. Like, I think
Yeah.
you were trying to do it in little steps to
Mm,
say, that's a big investment. And
yeah.
I don't want to go and like invest in this huge building if it's not going to be what's going to work for us, which is very reasonable. And
Yeah.
so,
Hmm.
I think sometimes we make these choices and they don't turn out the way that we expected them to. You were expecting to get a couple of years out of that tent, I'm
Yeah.
assuming, and that was going to be, you were going to work on that for a couple of years while you
Hmm.
decided whether to build the next thing. And it didn't work out that way. You had a season out of it, sort of. And then you said, forget this, we're going to go build the building. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, I think sometimes we need that learning process. And it's not because you made a bad decision by getting the tent. It's that the tent just really wasn't going to be enough for you. Like, you're ready to move further faster than that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that's okay. Like, to just say, all right, so we're learning from it and now we're moving forward. And the fact that I don't know, there's so much in this that in this story that's really just resonating with me. Like, I love the fact that you used LS Tech for this stuff. And it got
Yes.
me to thinking about how many opportunities there are for all of us to
Mm.
be working with schools and tech schools. I mean, we have Charahoe Tech right down the road. My
Okay.
kids go to
Hmm.
Charahoe. And
Okay.
so thinking about all of the stuff that their tech school does and their small engine repair, and like, how many of us don't even think about that as a possible resource. And what an amazing thing to actually create a partnership where
Right.
I mean, what farmer doesn't always have some kind of building project on the docket? Like, is there any farmer that doesn't have a piece of equipment that they want repaired, or, like, of course not. Now, you don't always want to take the kids who are learning to do that. Like, if you've got your, I don't even know what a good tractor is going for now. I swear they probably cost more than my house. But
Hmm.
at least 50 grand. You're
Oh,
not gonna necessarily, she's like, you are so out of touch with the
no. I don't. So I'm only thinking that because my friend last year brought us to Syracuse does like a farming convention every year,
Oh
and I
yeah.
was like, oh, this will be great. out of our league. We've got a rinky-dink tractor from the 70s that sometimes starts, and these tractors were like as big as, as big
Bigger
as the
than my
house kind of
house.
thing.
Some
Yeah.
of these tractors, I've seen them. The ones that they use in the Midwest are,
Yeah.
I mean, my house is 540 square feet, I think. Yeah, they're literally bigger than my house. And
I was like, we
so,
are not
yeah,
in Kansas anymore. This is
no, no, not at all. And so, anyway, all that to say, you probably don't want the kids just learning how to work on motors, working on that piece of equipment.
right, right.
But if
Mhm.
you're putting up a pole barn, like
Yeah.
that's a pretty low skill,
Right. Pretty rudimentary.
comparatively speaking. It's a good
Yeah.
entry level thing where if you've got somebody guiding them, that's where you learn. Like you learn how to lay cement,
Mhm.
you learn how to put the frames in place and to do all that stuff. So I think that's beautiful, and I'm hoping that the farmers out here are listening to that and thinking, oh, maybe that's a way. Did you pay them for that, or
Yeah.
was it like a? So how did that? I'm curious as to the price now because I want to give people an idea of, how that would work for them.
I'm not totally sure on the price because I wasn't involved in that part,
Yeah.
but I would say probably at least half of what it cost to have, a professional concrete person or mason come out and do it. So definitely you do have to pay for all the materials. That's a guaranteed. And then I think there's kind of like a suggested kind of donation that comes with it for the school, so that they can continue to do those kinds of projects. I don't know exactly what it is, but Dylan did say if we paid for it ourselves, it would have been 30 grand. So it just wouldn't have been feasible. So definitely. And yeah, give letting the kids have, like, I don't have any children, so I don't know, but I do know what it's like being, when I was a teenager, and parents don't trust, they're a little afraid to give you more trust. They don't want to give you, they still, a lot of people, they still look at you as a kid. And even
And your
with our
dad's
helper.
not going to give you his expensive power tool. Let me tell you,
Yeah,
my
right,
dad,
right.
it's like you're not dealing with his. I'm not going to let you borrow my tile cutter. No, 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 no,
Exactly.
no.
Exactly. But the parents that do, and they teach their children how to use the tools, how to use the equipment, they end up becoming better. Those children end up being better, obviously better adults because of it. Then they go on usually to teach other people how to use it. And
Yeah.
and fortunately, Dylan's father has always been a teacher, so he's always been, so like I always think about that because my dad, that was my dad. Like, I have to be there. I have to help you do it because I don't want you to break it. I don't want you to hurt yourself,
Yep.
whatever. So,
Yep.
but Dylan's father has always, been like, yeah, this, you learn it by learning it. So go ahead and do it. And I see that with Dylan, with our helper, because one of our helpers, is a senior in high school. So he comes on the weekends kind of thing. And I tend to like we shouldn't give him all these hard jobs, and he's like, what do you mean? Like, this is literally his job. Like, he does the dirty work. He gets to learn it. He probably, I've seen him build his own confidence up just by knowing that he's such an integral part of the farm. And
Yeah.
like, we trust him and we do make him lists, and he just goes and does them. And
There you
you
go.
know yeah, so it's a good thing.
And how cool that you have the opportunity to be building the next generation of farm support team. Like
Mhm.
that's the other thing, we're in such a place now where so many people are so far removed from farming in a practical way that
Mhm.
they don't have any of the skills or knowledge that farmers need even when they're hiring somebody to come on or as a long-term helper, any of this stuff. And so I really love the whole finding partnerships with schools or with younger kids that you can get them in there and really start to train them because
Mhm.
that builds up the whole system. Like that builds it up for everybody. Um, so much. Oh gosh, so much there. And I do want to also just bring up your bartering idea because
Yeah.
I have a consultant who's like, I don't consider bartering income generation. And I was like, I get that, like her job is to help me make money, which
Oh.
which we're working on. Like,
Oh, well,
we'll, we'll,
if you were gonna spend the money on it anyways, well, you just, think of,
so,
that's how I
but
think of it.
but my thing was I had my sister knew of somebody who was writing a memoir,
Hmm.
and he was a contractor. And so he wanted to have me edit his book. And I was like, okay, I do that. No problem. I'm a writer. And I was looking at it and I'm like, but I need work done on my barn to keep my
Hmm.
barn solid. So I can't afford to hire, like you were saying, can't afford to hire somebody to do that. So we took like half of the cost of the book and we decided to do a bartering thing. I would give him the time, he would give me time here and do work on the barn. We, pulled the cost of materials off of, what we each owed each other, and it worked for us,
Hmm.
And so I think that those kinds of creative, ways of bartering with each other is something that we need to not look at that as like a second class way of functioning. Like, I think we
I
really
agree.
need to value that and to
Hmm.
realize that in doing that, it's great to exchange money for things. It really is. It's, people value things when they give money for it. There's no doubt about it. Um, and yeah, if you have two people who both have skills and
Right.
they're willing to exchange skills for each other that fit what everybody needs, like what a beautiful synergy that is. And that's so much of, how our country was really founded with, people exchanging the labor that they had for the things that they could do. So I just love so much about that.
Oh yeah, we've bartered for a couch before. Like we
Nice.
we did a half a pig for a couch that they were gonna sell, for like $500. We bartered for all the guy that came and hooked up our stove yesterday. We bartered with him. We barter our help. When we got away a couple weeks ago for the weekend, and we were like, how's a Thanksgiving turkey sound? Maybe we don't have to pay you, but that's something you're gonna buy anyways. So I
Right.
think a lot of the time people, like you said, they don't necessarily value it as income, and they'd almost rather go buy it from the grocery store instead, because it just, the money transaction, the tie with money, they feel like, how could it possibly be, I'd rather just pay you for it. And I don't understand why, but I don't think that way. So there's got to be a reason.
Well,
Hmm.
I mean, I think it's because, again, our culture is so rooted
Yeah.
in an exchange of money. Like,
Right. Right.
we do it in every aspect. I mean, when my family came and put on my roof, I paid them to come and put on my roof. And
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
paid them because I looked at them and I was like, well, going back to your, Catholic roots, the workman is worth his wages. And so,
Hmm.
I believe in paying somebody for the work that they do.
Hmm.
And at the same time, that if you've got something of value that they can benefit of,
Hmm.
it's okay to forego the money thing and just let that fall by the wayside. And, everybody has to be happy with that. But I
Right. As
just
long
think
as,
it's
yeah.
yeah, right. So
Hmm.
it's a just a clever solution. And I guess that's what I'm seeing here is that this story that all came out of your party tent here,
Yeah.
that story that you were like, I don't have an example. Oh, wait, yes, I do.
I probably have better examples too.
No,
That's the
are
first
you
one
kidding?
that
Look
popped
at
in my
this.
head.
I'm looking at this party example, and we talked about faith, and we talked about, being gracious with ourselves when we don't have results that we want, and we talked about being able to get alternative forms of service for people
Mhm.
and bartering. Like, are you kidding? This was great. And I'm looking at this, Cassidy, and this is what happens on Food, Flowers, and Fun, is that I get to the end of the episode and I say, "Ugh, I could talk to you for
Got this. I got
years." I know, right? And so
this.
I tell everybody that I'm just going to have you come back on. So I figure that by season three, I'll be just
I
like
would love it.
I'll be recycling guests because
Yeah.
I'll want to catch up with everybody and find out what they're doing. But
Right. See if our barn got finished. See, if I'm still baking in the kitchen and what we're
right,
doing.
exactly. How many pigs did you do this year? Like,
Mhm.
did you tie the knot? Are there two-legged critters running around
Yeah.
that you're like pulling your hair out, taking care of?
Oh,
All kinds of questions. All.
oh, thanks, Kay. Yeah.
But before we go, I have a question that I ask every farmer. And
Okay.
that question is, if you had one thing that you thought farmers should know, every farmer should know, what would that be?
Let's see. One thing I think every farmer should know.
Yeah.
Let's see. Hmm. Okay. Um, that what you are doing is important and that it was probably always meant to be what you were doing. That's what I think. Because sometimes I wonder, am I doing the right thing? Was I meant to be, should I have been a doctor? Could I have done it? No. And even I have lawyer friends, I've got doctor friends, I've got, teacher friends, I've got all these friends, and they all think what I'm doing is extremely important for our community, ourselves, our families, our friends, and the world, maybe.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that because several times I heard you ask the question. I wrote it down here. Am I even supposed to be doing this?
Hmm.
And like, how many times do we have a setback and we think, "Ugh, is this even what I'm supposed to be doing? Like, am I beating my head against a brick wall and getting nothing but a headache and, a bruise on my forehead?"
Hmm.
And so I think that's really important to leave people with. So thank you for that.
Oh,
Is a
yeah.
that's a beautiful word of wisdom.
Oh,
And
thanks.
and thank you for being on Food, Flowers, and Fun.
Thank
And
you so much for having me. You're so easy to talk to, Kay. It was such a good time.
thank you. Well,
You're
I
welcome.
really enjoy doing this. Yeah, it's
Right, you're supposed to be doing it. So,
this whole venue is just I just love it. So thank you for
oh,
helping me
thank
to
you.
fulfill part of my purpose. And thank you out there for listening and being a part of Food, Flowers, and Fun. And we will see you next time. Bye.
How do you multiply by fractions, Mom?
Farmers calling, our show is all done. Goodbye, farewell, so long, adieu. See you next week, same time, same place for Food, Flowers, and Fun. Go in peace. Visit us at www.penlightfarmers.com.